Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's school committee meeting. This meeting is being held on Wednesday, June 12th at the Middle School Collaborative Room, and it is a hybrid meeting. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast at a later date over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. If you wish to join our Zoom meeting, it is meeting ID 766-316-7607. It will be broadcast at a later date through the local access cable channel and on the public access Facebook page, and will be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. Once again, I wish to thank Lunenburg Public Access for all they do for all of us in the community. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. We have omitted in our agenda the Pledge of Allegiance, but I would ask you to stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item on the agenda is public comment. Does anyone on the board have a public comment this evening? Mr. Leighton.
Yes, I would just like to congratulate all the students and the faculty and staff on a great school year, and for those that have the summer off, I hope you have a great summer.
Ditto.
Yep, happy last day of school.
It's always a happy last day of school. And no one on Zoom, so we will continue.
And public comment to the public too.
Yeah, I was looking for on Zoom if there was
yeah,
anybody
yeah.
in the public for comments.
Just came through on the speaker, somebody's on there.
If someone is on Zoom and would like to comment, they're welcome to do so. We're not seeing you, but not hearing anyone, then I'm going to continue with the chair's report.
Oh, I didn't know if we opened the public comment to the public.
I did a couple times, but I'll do it again. Is there anyone in the public that has a public comment?
Thanks.
Not hearing any public comments, then we're going to continue. Okay. This is the chair's report. I understand there is some concern in the community regarding the cuts being made despite the passing of the override. As promised before the override, the following cuts are being made: a humanities teacher at the high school, an intervention teacher at the high school, a classroom teacher at the middle school, a counselor at the middle school, a classroom teacher at the elementary school, a Wilson reading teacher at the elementary school, a PE teacher that is split between the primary school and the elementary school, and a social worker in the primary school, as well as an instructional coach district-wide. These are the cuts being made due to financial reasons. These cuts do equal the ESSER funds. When cuts are made per contract, the remaining personnel do move around as their certification permits. Paraprofessionals are not part of this cut. There may be reductions in this area for other reasons. The need for individual paraprofessional positions is constantly being reassessed. I hope that answers the questions people have concerning this. If you have additional questions, I would ask you to follow up with the superintendent or with the school committee chair. As many of you are aware, I have one more year in my term on the school committee, but I am stepping down from being chair. I wish to thank the members of this committee, both past and present, for their hard work and for keeping things on track when I do not. Like Brian saying, are you sure you asked everybody? Because sometimes I forget, and I appreciate that. I would also like to thank the superintendent, Mrs. Peterson, for always being available, knowledgeable, and flexible. One more very special thank you is to elected officials from other boards, particularly Renee MK and Evan Waters, for their collaboration. And that's what I have to say this evening. So now we are on to the reorganization. Do we have Mr. Schoolambrini?
Oh, we have minutes first.
Oh, sorry, I was reading this. Okay, thank you, see, I need help. And
Mr. Schoenbrini is
oh, great, okay, we have minutes first, sorry, Mr. Schoolambrini. I forgot about it. We have minutes for regular session, April 3rd, April 10th, May 1st, and May 24th, May 14th, sorry. Does anybody have any questions about those? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve those?
I think it was just the May 14th, just as a point of order, May 14th, Anthony was absent, so maybe we can take that one separate.
Okay, thank you very much, see, keep on track.
Motion to approve the minutes, except, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, bear with me for just a second here.
I don't know if we have the 4-3. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, I think that was the only one somebody was absent for.
Wasn't I?
I was back in April.
Yeah, sorry, just trying to get my head around. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, so let's take those separately and leave the one that Mr. Schoenbrini was not here for
Yeah, the May
out.
14th, yeah.
So did we had
I'll
that
make a
motion?
motion, yeah, did you have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of May 1st, April 10th, April 3rd.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we can't do it that way,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, roll call vote, yeah.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Schoenbrini. Mrs. Brzezowski.
Aye.
Mr. Beardmore.
Aye.
Mr. Leighton.
Aye.
Mrs. Ashambo.
Aye. And now special meeting, May 14th.
I'll make a motion to approve the May 14th special meeting minutes.
Second?
And roll call vote, please. Oh,
We don't need one for this one.
We don't.
because Mr.
Schoenbrini's-
Schoenbrini wasn't there. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right then. Now we move on to the committee reorganization. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Burnham.
All right. So the first order of business is to elect a new chair. Are there any nominations for chair?
I would nominate Brian Layton to be chair.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Are there any other nominations? Mr. Leighton, would you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
I just have a question for Mr. Leighton. Actually, I have two questions. First question is, do you think that you have the time necessary to do this job?
Yes. I attend almost every meeting. It's very rare that I'm even absent for a meeting, but there are occasional meetings that I am absent.
Okay. Secondly, in your profession, you are a teacher, and I have to assume that you are a member of the MTA as part of your professional association with the MTA.
Yes.
Do you foresee any problems relating to a conflict of interest or inability to do your job as a result of your membership in the MTA and the fact that our largest labor union is affiliated with the MTA?
I don't. I think it's similar to how Ms. Archambault was also a previous teacher. I think you don't have that necessarily conflict of interest as you have that experience and that knowledge, and you can take that with you to the job to even make yourself a better chair or a member of the school committee.
So, okay, I'm going to vote in favor, but I want to publicly state my reservation, because I think you're gonna be an excellent chair, Brian. My reservation is that when you have a labor union and you have a potential conflict with that labor union, and they seek representation from their affiliation, and you are a member of that affiliated union, it creates a difficult situation potentially for you. And I want to state that in advance, that I have a reservation to put you in that situation, but also potentially a public perception that the union is represented on both sides of the table, right? And I don't believe that will be the case, but I can tell you that that has already been articulated to me by members of the public with respect to that concern. And so my point here, because I think you're gonna be elected and I want this to be a unanimous vote, I'm gonna vote in favor, but I want to state in advance that that is a reservation that I have.
And I would also just add that I won't be if elected, I wouldn't be the only chair in, say, the state of Massachusetts that wasn't an MTA member.
Okay.
Specifically, quickly, just to put this on the record for public concern, Brian was not part of the team selected to negotiate the CBA. And so his role, if he were to be elected chair, would be identical to the role of anybody else on the school committee. And what his role would be if he were not chair, namely to vote to ratify the contract. So I hear the concerns, but I don't think that there is any basis to be concerned.
And I would also say that in the discussions I've had with Mr. Leighton, I have no concern about him being able to do this job and do it without regards to his membership in the MTA.
Are we ready for a vote?
I believe so.
And I will unmute Mr. Schoenbrini. All right, ready for a roll call vote, Mr. Schoenbrini? On the nomination of Mr. Leighton for chair, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore?
Yes.
Mr. Leighton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ashambo?
Yes.
Thank you for your service. Congratulations to you, Mr. Leighton.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
I will
Carol,
turn
for
the
your
meeting over
service.
to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Archambault, for your service. Next up, we have vice chair. I'll open it up to nominations for vice chair.
I would nominate Mr. Schoenbrini.
Is there a second? I'll second that nomination. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Mr. Beardmore.
I respectfully decline, not because I would not like to be vice chair, but for my previously stated conflict and the concern that I have just voiced. I think that that would put the committee at a disadvantage in the event that somebody needs to speak as chair and would not feel comfortable doing so.
Any other nominations? Any discussion on the nomination for vice chair? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Schoenbrini?
I'll accept the nomination.
Thank you, thank you. Now we'll do a roll call vote for Anthony Schoenbrini for vice chair.
Yeah, I'm getting a message that we have a sound issue with Zoom.
We do, because there's some background on the call that Mr. Schoenbrini's calling in,
Okay.
and I've muted him, but he needs to unmute from time
Okay,
to time,
fair
so
enough.
I apologize for the
Sorry to
the
interrupt.
rest of the audience viewing. We'll do this as quickly as possible.
All right, so we're gonna do a roll call vote. Mr. Schoenbrini? Or should I turn this over to the chair for a roll call vote? Or the
I-
superintendent?
I can if you wish.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to the superintendent for a roll call vote.
Mr. Schoenbrini,
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski,
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is nominations for secretary.
I just have a comment about that, if I can, through the chair.
Yes.
I think we need to have a secretary that is available during the day, because sometimes things have to be signed at the last minute, and the secretary can sign warrants at the last minute during the day if needed. If you are at school and Tony is in New Hampshire somewhere and something has to be signed. So I believe that leaves it to Laura or I, to be honest.
You want to do it?
I don't care. It doesn't matter. I've been signing them forever.
I
Makes no
nominate-
difference to me.
I'd like to nominate Carol Archambault to be clerk.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Any discussion? All right. Dr. Burnham, we're ready for a roll call vote.
Mr. Schoenbrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore?
Yes.
Mr. Layton?
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault?
Yes.
All right, and that'll leave Mr. Beardmore and Ms. Brzezowski as members of the school committee. Thank you. Moving on to appointments, the official voting delegate to the MASC will be Mr. Layton. Typically, it's the chair, the legislative representative for the school committee, again, usually typically the chair, Mr. Layton. The spokesperson, typically the chair, and the superintendent. So next up is policy develop review. So for policy, last year we had Ms. Brzezowski and Mr. Scullenbrini.
I'd love to continue doing it.
Tony said, I don't know if he's,
He's still here.
Tony, policy?
I'm happy to continue, but
Okay.
I really am glad that Laura has volunteered.
Oh,
I will say,
And again, I think for all of these, we'll go through the whole list and see if there's any discussion, and
Yep.
then do a vote at the end. Any other discussion on policy? All right, seeing none, the administrators in advisory capacity, we should be good with that. Next up is the sick leave bank. So last year it was Ms. Archambault. Any discussion? Sick leave bank?
we didn't even meet.
Sounds like a good job.
Yeah, sounds like a
And they
good job
typically
to me.
move during, they meet during the day too,
Yes,
so.
so, yeah, that's
that
fine.
would be
That's
good if
fine.
you want to stay on.
That's fine.
All right, we have the superintendent of schools. Next is the executive board member to Keystone. Again, typically the superintendent. Next up is the finance committee. That was myself. I wasn't able to attend a lot of the meetings, but I watched a lot on YouTube, just because of Thursday conflicts. I typically will have Thursday conflicts, so I know a lot of you guys showed up to the finance committee meeting, so
What?
if
How'd
you
that
want to
happen?
take that over,
you wouldn't
I think that's
stop.
fine, but I can also continue watching the YouTubes and report as well.
Knowing the amount of time it takes to be chair, I am okay with doing the FinCom for you, because that's a time eater.
Yeah, and
But if
Laura,
somebody
Peter
else is
also
dying
were
to jump in on
interested too. I know you guys
FinCom,
went to a lot of meetings.
You know I'm not shy.
I'd rather not sign up for another evening thing
All right.
right now, because I don't know what next year's schedule is.
So if there's no other interest, we can pencil in Carol for that one.
Yep.
The finance committee appointing committee, so typically that's the chair, so I'm assuming
Yeah,
I'll
it
take
should
over
be,
that
it
one.
should be. Hopefully, it will be unnecessary. Hopefully, that is a very stable crew at the moment.
Yeah. What, do you know when they often met? The appointing
They,
committee?
they would meet on random Tuesday nights at
That's good.
6 o'clock before the select board meeting, because that was convenient for the select board.
That'll work.
So, but it was probably 3 times last year,
Thank you.
so it's not a huge commitment.
Next is the capital planning committee. We had Mr. Beardmore.
I'd be happy to continue.
Good.
That would be great, thank you. Any other discussion on capital planning?
Just one point on this, just so that everybody's aware. And I don't even know if we verbalized this last year, but the capital planning committee, unlike, I think, any other assignment from the school
It's a
committee,
term.
is a termed appointment.
Yes.
So, not that I am planning to serve a full term in that role, let me just tell you right now, but suffice to say, by appointing me to that committee, you are appointing me to a 3-year term in that committee. So I just want to make everybody aware before that appointment.
This
So-
would be the second,
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is your, because I
no?
No,
Been on it.
according to the town website, my term that I'm currently serving expires this month.
oh, okay, good to know.
So,
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment about the website?
Sure.
There are numerous errors in the dates.
okay.
We ran into that last night, so.
Oh, I know the finance committee also themselves.
Oh, is that right?
off,
All right,
too.
well, to the best of my knowledge.
But I think
It
it's,
could be 3, it could be 2, it
Yeah,
could be
it could
1,
be
but it's
anything,
a
yeah.
termed event.
and I had
And
signed
again,
up.
I'm happy to serve at least 1 more year, so we'll
Yeah, we
deal
do
with
it
it
at
when
a
we get to it.
Annual basis, because even I was on for a year and then I had to fill out
Yeah, I
a
mean,
letter of resignation so that
Yeah.
we could switch.
Yep, and I understand how that process works, but I just, again, I went with the website. I didn't think to dig deeper.
Yeah. But yeah, that would be something to do some research on, because I wonder if you had to fill my remaining term too. That
I don't
would
know,
be
I was
interesting.
sworn
Oh,
in
that might have
and
been it.
filled out the form and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, so it is,
Could be
when I was
the
assigned, I was clearly filling out a remaining term.
And I could have been filling out a
But yeah,
remaining
probably,
term too, so
probably work, yeah.
there's definitely a lot of research needs to be
Yeah.
done on that.
Okay,
one,
we'll figure
but
it
that's
out.
okay.
Suffice to say, I'll keep going.
Next item is the Wellness Advisory Committee. So last year it was Mr. Scullambrini. Any discussion on that one?
I don't believe this committee ever met, but I'm happy to do it again.
It did meet, and it does meet in the afternoon, which is probably a challenge for Mr. Schoenbrini.
How often does it meet?
I believe that they've scheduled 5 dates for this year, although probably one of them is a flex date in case there's a cancellation of some type.
I can do that if it's in the afternoon.
Yeah, I
If
was
you
just
prefer,
thinking about
Tony,
it.
unless this is,
Could swap some groups, yeah.
No, makes more sense for somebody to attend the meeting.
All right, so Ms. Brzezowski, unless there's any other discussion on that one, pencil in Ms.
Looks good to
Brzezowski.
me.
Next is the PTO liaison. Anthony, were you still interested in the PTO?
Yes, that is one I can always make, and it is one that I feel is really important for us to have an open channel to. Anybody could do it, but since I have a limited availability during the day, and that one's always at night, it works well for me.
Any other discussion on the PTO liaison? Seeing none, next up is PacSal liaison. It was Ms. Brzezowski.
I don't mind doing that, though. That one was great. Zoom meetings, they keep it short and orderly. There's an extra O in my name.
Any other discussion on the PacSal? All right, seeing none, next up is the school council reps. Lunenburg High School, it was Mr. Beardmore.
I'm happy to continue there. Or we could shuffle too, but
Any other discussion on Lunenburg High School? All right, we'll pencil in Mr. Beardmore. Lunenburg Middle School is Ms. Archambault.
That's fine.
Any other discussion? All right, next up, Turkey Hill was Ms. Brzezowski.
I didn't mind doing that one unless you want to.
No, I
Swap back
kind of
and-
like the primary too, because I got my youngest going into kindergarten this year, so we can do that too. Any other discussion on Turkey Hill or primary school? All right, seeing none. Athletic Advisory Council, Mr. Beardmore was last year.
happy to continue.
Any other discussion on athletic advisory? All right, next is the Lifelong Learning Advisory. Was Ms. Brzezowski?
I don't think they ever met.
We did not.
Okay, then I would be very happy to do that one again.
All right, any other discussion on Lifelong Learning Advisory? All right, Lunenburg Municipal, we haven't met in a while, but that was me. And I think because we're kind of hopefully closing it out someday, probably makes sense, we had this discussion last year that I should
Yeah.
probably stay on.
Okay.
Master Plan Steering was Ms. Archambault. I feel like that might be up the same
I can
reasoning.
continue to do that, that's fine. I would like to add a committee to this, if that's all right with the chair.
Yeah, I think we just wait for the budget task force, and then we can add
That
any
was the
additional
one.
ones. So it is on the
Oh.
list,
Oh,
yeah.
it is on the list,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not reading off of that, I'm reading
Yeah,
off
I'll
of
just read it off
Google.
the website. I
That
have
was the one.
Google Drive.
What is the condition of the budget task force?
I will tell you what I was told today, if that's all right, through the chair.
Yes.
I'm gonna have trouble keeping my mouth shut,
That's
so
okay.
help yourself. Was that there was a presentation made to the select board last night. That presentation is included in our packet this evening. Not for us to make any big decisions about that particular piece, but for information. And it was felt that as part of this, we would need a school committee member, and that the superintendent and the finance director at the school would serve on the task force, the budget task force. And basically what, I know Mr. Schoenbrini has expressed interest in this, I don't know if anyone else has expressed interest, but they would like, Ms. MK would like us to express our support for the formation of this committee.
Having not watched last night's meeting or read the deck, I would like to defer on that. I obviously, if the other members feel comfortable voting for it, that would be fine. I have some strong reservations about what's been discussed relative to that committee and the charter and where we are as a town, so.
Did they come up last night? Did they finalize their charge and the makeup of the committee officially, or
I
did they?
believe Ms. MK is on the call, but that's not my.
I think it's something too that we could discuss at a future meeting too, that, I don't know if it's necessarily on our agenda to express support or not, but I think just to assign a member of our committee to the budget task force.
Is it just one?
I'm happy to volunteer to do it. Renee had asked, it was either at town meeting or at the caucus before town meeting. And I said, sure, I'd do it. So, again, want to meet in the evening, which will make it work with my schedule. But, and I think most everybody is as qualified or more qualified than I am.
Thank you, Mr. Schoenbrini. Dr. Burnham, did you have anything to add?
Just as a point of information for you, Ms. Emke is on the meeting, and she does have her hand raised, so she might be able to provide you some clarification and information.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Emke, if you'd like to speak in regards to this topic?
Sure, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so there was no official vote last night. I presented just an overview of how some other towns in Massachusetts have done this. And it's essentially the same. It involves finance committee, school committee, town manager, which we won't have, finance director for the town and school and superintendent. We did not take an official vote last night. I'm hoping we can get an official vote at next week's meeting. So it's a little chicken and eggy, I feel. They want, we can form a task force, but if we don't have support from the people we're proposing to participate, then it won't get off the ground. But then asking people to participate before the task force is formed. So, yeah, that's why I spoke with Ms. Archibald earlier about it. So we're just looking to see if there is commitment and interest from school committee and finance committee to participate in such an effort.
What is the anticipated outcome?
Ideally, so the scope is very broad. It looks at revenue sources, looks at cost saving, whether outsourcing, efficiencies and combining services or functions, operating budgets, capital budgets. I think, my own personal opinion is, I think everything is on the table. Every idea, I think, should be explored, but the ideal outcome is to look for a multi-year forecast. It includes also looking at our ability to borrow. I know other towns have done 5 years. I think years would be great. And to come forward with recommendations and forward-looking, as much as we can, the financial health and well-being and of providing everything we need to provide for the town.
So I have to say, I think if, you know, I'm not sure if it's the chicken or the egg, but I don't want to be first in this, is my position. I think that we need to see a written charge on this with an anticipated outcome. Many of the things that Selectman Emke just outlined are stipulated in the charter as a deliverable from the town manager in the 5-year fiscal forecast, which this year we did not receive. So, and quite honestly, in previous years, there was no effort made to make any of that any kind of consensus, and any kind of communication, frankly, before the document was submitted as a final document. So I would be thrilled if past practice did not represent future practice, and I'm open to any and all options, but you know, what we're talking about here is stipulated in the charter under the responsibilities of the town manager, and we need to hire a town manager who executes this, I would hope, in a more collective manner.
So I'm just gonna try to pull us back in here. So I think because it's not on our agenda, I don't wanna have a discussion where we get everyone's opinions on the budget task force. What I would recommend is members reach out to Ms. Emke for more information. And Ms. Emke, I appreciate your comments tonight. I think it would be great if you can send the school committee information, even to me or the superintendent.
That's what's in your.
Okay, and we can add this to a future agenda where we can potentially express support or not for the budget task force and elect a member to be a representative. What does the committee
Would
think?
it be possible, if we do this, jumping way ahead, would it be possible to send 2 members? Because it feels like if we are gonna buy into this, we would want to maybe send more than 1 member. I mean, I don't know how big the committee's gonna be, but if it's gonna be 12 people, then I think,
I guess my assumption would be that but that would be something you'd want to reach out to the select board for, if they're gonna be forming the committee. If we're assuming
Yeah.
the select board's forming.
I mean, I would have to know first who's on, you know, how many people and,
That's
Before
in
we
the
can show
information.
support.
so I think we're just
It's
gonna have
in
to
the
defer.
information.
So I think if people can review the information, I don't know if we have all that information at this point now to discuss it now, but I think at a future meeting, we should plan to have that on the agenda. Any other discussion? All right, so if the committee is good with that, I think we should table the budget task force position rep and continue with what we have so far. So that is the list so far. Any discussion on the list and representatives? All right, so I'll be looking for a motion.
I will move that we accept the committee appointments as we have just outlined.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All right, Dr. Burnham, we're ready for a roll call vote.
Mr. Schoenbrini?
Aye.
Mrs. Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore?
Yes.
Mr. Leighton?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashamu?
Yes,
Thank you, everyone. All right, next item on the agenda is to authorize policies and procedures to remain in force. So this is just a typical annual procedure to authorize the policies, the school committee policies, and then the procedures for the following year. Is there a motion?
I actually dropped a document that outlines the motions that you would potentially want to consider for these items.
Do we wanna do the 3 separately, or?
Yes, let's plan to do the 3 separate.
I move to authorize that policies and procedures remain in force.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Schoenbrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore?
Yes.
Mr. Leighton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ashambo?
Yes.
Next is the annual student activity accounts authorization. Looking for a motion to approve the student activity accounts not to exceed primary school in Turkey Hill, $2,000 each, middle school, $5,000, and the high school, $10,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, ready for a roll call vote?
Mr. Schoenbrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore?
Yes.
Mr. Leighton?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashambo?
Yes.
And we have a annual town meeting auditorium waiver. The motion would be to allow beverages with a lid in the Lunenburg Middle High School auditorium for both the annual and special town meeting.
I move that we allow beverages with a lid in the LMHS auditorium for both the annual and special town meeting.
I'll second, but with a question. Why do we have to do this every year? Discussion? Why do we have to do this every year?
Because I
That's
do
a
think
good
it
question.
ties back to policy that there's no food and drink in the auditorium.
So if we change the
you-
policy, we wouldn't have to do this.
Potentially, but you may not want to. I mean,
Okay. no, I-
conditions are such that things change
Okay.
year to year. You may want to have, as an example, if you had one year where a town meeting was particularly
Messy?
messy, you may want to have a different decision the following year. Whereas if you change policy, you would have to then go through 3 reads of policy in order not to allow for that. So
All
I
right,
do
that's
think
fair.
this is easy enough to
Yep.
do.
That's fair.
Any other discussion? All right, I think we're ready for, we have a second and we have a motion and a second. We're ready for a roll call vote.
Mr. Schoenbrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore?
Yes.
Mr. Leighton?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashambo?
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the declare surplus curriculum classroom materials. Should be in your folder.
So you have a summary. The quick overview is that when we adopted the HMH curriculum in math and literacy, K-5, as well as the Amplify curriculum last year, 6 through 8, we pulled out any of the obsolete or irrelevant materials to make space in classrooms for the newly adopted curriculum. We've been inventorying all of it. We're still in process. We had a STEP program intern with us over at central office this past school year. And she went through everything and sort of tallied up what we have available in all of those boxes. We'd be looking to declare it surplus, although there are some novels and picture books, et cetera, that I've been in conversation with some of the class advisors to see if they would be interested in taking those and doing something akin to what the public library does with a book sale. Not that it would net a lot of money, but it could be beneficial to one of the classes that might be willing to take that on and put some of those old novels and picture books to good use.
Ms. Ashenbo?
I just have a question in looking through that list and knowing what the framework is for social studies in grade 3. There are a lot of Native American titles on this list. And has somebody, has Mrs. Scott or somebody who teaches that curriculum looked at that list?
They have gone through it.
Okay.
And again, they feel that either it's, not a good grade level match or maybe not, some of the materials may not be culturally sensitive. And therefore not relevant in the way that we would teach today the same topics.
Okay.
So one of my issues with the Amplify curriculum, one of the only issues, is the lack of physical books and the amount of reading on a computer the kids are doing. Does this close the door to that, or are these
No.
books outside of the Amplify curriculum that we're not using anymore? Because
They-
there's a lot of high school books on here.
There are some old texts and whatnot from various grade levels. We are not closing the door to paper texts, but we would make sure that the things that we are keeping in text align with the modules in the curriculum.
There's a lot of good books on here.
Is there any way to sell any of the books on the market for other schools that might be looking for books?
We could take a look. I don't know that there would be other schools that would be interested in grabbing these materials. If we are moving away from them, they're likely also moving away, particularly in this state, where the Department of Ed is looking for us to move toward well-vetted, inclusive materials for our curriculum.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Are these books all in the school library, a copy of them?
No,
Okay, would the school library like them? I mean, some of these are,
as I said, we would leave them in the classroom if we felt that they were still relevant to the curriculum.
but the school library offers books other than, like, the high school library offers books other than just ones in the curriculum, correct?
There are library books on the shelves in the library for loan, yes.
Okay, and would the library be interested in these books? Because there's some classics in here, and I want to make sure.
We can defer, but then this means that I can't move on any of these materials until we get back to school in late August, when I can have the librarian take a look through all of these materials to see if she would like to put any of them on the shelf in the library.
Any other discussion? All right.
Yeah. This is an enormous list.
For the public, it's 65
It's
pages.
65 pages, and there's
Incredibly itemized, by the way.
1, 2, 3,
Whoever
4,
did this did a
5 by,
very large
I
amount
mean,
of.
there's like 50 titles on every page, and there's 65 pages. I would assume there are some redundancies, but I don't know. And it's cataloged by box. I mean, two things come to mind. Number one is, I understand the fact that if it isn't being used,
Right.
then it's taking up space, and we need to move on from it. On the other hand, the town spent an enormous amount of money on these materials. And to the point that Laura just brought out, like, if there are avenues to retain some of these titles in libraries, I mean, some of these books are books that have been like mainstays of our curriculum for 4 decades. And the other thing is that these are not itemized by quantity, they're just itemized by title.
We're getting rid of the outsiders?
Dr. Burnham, can you give us a little bit more detail on the process of who reviewed the titles and who reviewed the books to make these decisions?
So when the different curricula were adopted, the teachers in the classrooms pulled all of the materials that were connected back to previous curriculum out of the classrooms so that they could make space for the new materials. So the teachers have had eyes on these. The coaches in our curriculum office as well.
And then where are they
I can withdraw this and put it on an agenda for September, and We can maybe bring in examples of the condition of the books as well,
Yeah, that's another
That
question,
we
like,
can-
because
Where-
they are not,
are these books that we're gonna have to replace, or
we
we're gonna-
replace books, novels, all the time. Because they are well worn.
Sure.
Where are these books currently held?
TCP,
Mm.
and have been for more than a
That's
year,
interesting.
because we adopted these curricula 2 years ago, but as you can tell, it's taken quite some time to inventory it all
Inventory it all.
for declaring it surplus.
Any other discussion?
Do the classrooms all have classroom libraries?
There are books that come along with the curriculum at the lower grades, but they do have book rooms at both the primary and the Turkey Hill, and the teachers do have books in their classrooms as well.
Okay.
For me, as a teacher, I feel like this is a common thing in schools, that you update books. Especially for me, I would
Yeah.
keep like one version of the book on my bookshelf, and then the rest of the books you get rid of. You either sell them or donate them or find a place for them. And we've even had a revamp in my school's library, where the kids can literally just pick any books. The books are all laid out because the schools don't want them anymore, and kids can take the books and take them home.
I almost, if we do declare it surplus, I'd rather have the teachers have a go at it, and then.
The teachers
students-
had to
Well,
go
they
at
They've
it.
had to go
have
at it?
go at
Okay.
it. If they,
I also don't want to create unnecessary additional work. So
No,
I,
no.
you know, I,
They've been sitting at TCP a year, though,
More than a year, actually.
so they're,
Again, they needed the space in the classrooms for all
Yep.
the
well,
new
I get
materials
that,
that
I
came
get
in.
that, yeah.
And as you know, we've been looking at curriculum through a lens of inclusion and diversity. So
Some of these do reflect that, though. But if that's,
okay.
If there's no other discussion, I'll look for a motion on the surplus curriculum classroom materials.
I can move that we would declare these surplus if the teachers have all looked at it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Mr. Schoenbrini,
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski,
I'm gonna abstain.
Mr. Beardmore,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes,
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is donation.
All right, so this evening you have a letter of gratitude that we would be sending to Mr. Lucier for his continued support of Lunenburg High School students in their pursuits of post-secondary education in the fields of creative writing and film production. He has donated 4 scholarships in the amount of $1,000 each for our graduating students. So there's that acceptance of those scholarships and a letter of gratitude.
Those scholarships have already been awarded.
yes.
Yes.
Is there 2 donations too? Do we have that?
Yep, we also have a check in the amount of $2,265.39 from the PTO-sponsored Spring Scholastic Book Fair. This money would be deposited into the student activities account to support future field trips at the primary school.
Any discussion?
Thank you to the PTO.
Look for a motion.
I would move to approve both of these donations from Mr. Lucier and also from the PTO for the Lunenburg Public Schools, and we thank them very much.
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Mr. Schoenbrini,
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski,
Yes.
Mr. Beardmore,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashenbaugh.
Yes,
All right, next item, old business, we have action item, the superintendent evaluation. Ms. Archibald, if you feel comfortable, I would like you to present, since you put this
I
together.
will do that as soon as I figure out how I did this initially to find it. But anyways, yes, here it is, okay. What I wanted to do was we have explained the process very quickly, that each member of the school committee did their own version of the superintendent's evaluation. Superintendent is evaluated based on the goals set for the current year, or actually 2 years in this case, this is a 2-year cycle. And once those evaluations came to me, I put them together. I ran it past Mr. Leighton to make sure that I didn't completely miss something. And then I sent it to each individual member of the school committee, and they are in agreement. So what I would like to do is just very quickly go through the superintendent's summative evaluation from the school committee. There were 4 goals. The first goal was professional practice, and I'll jump down there. Here we go. It was implementing the new reading and math curriculum at K-5, and that goal was met. The second goal, they're in different orders in different parts of this. The student learning goal was the goal to have, as an iReady benchmark, 80% of our students at grade level. And that goal showed significant progress. It was not completely met, but it was pretty darn close. The next goal, there were 2 district improvement goals. Keep going up and down here. One was administering a climate survey to obtain a baseline measurement of school climate, reviewing emergency operation plans and COVID protocols, support students academically through intervention and tutoring, continue professional development offerings on cultural competence, and work to reduce the number of high school students who feel they do not have a trusted adult they can turn to at school. That goal was declared met. And the last one, based on data from the spring 2022 Title I survey, we seek to build upon our partnership with families in the education of their children, and they will conduct a family-school partnership self-assessment utilizing resources developed by Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to identify possible priorities for action and develop plans for 2023 and possibly beyond, and that goal was met. And I will read the narrative that went with that. The job of leading our schools requires continuously monitoring indicators and analyzing needs, setting goals and campaigning for the support and resources needed, planning and continuously leading teams to accomplish those goals frequently over the course of multiple years. The job requires tireless leadership and resilience. Fortunately, Lunenburg has a leader in Dr. Burnham who is well suited for the task. She has worked with diligence and skill to make difficult changes in systems, curriculum, and culture to bring the district more in alignment with state standards and a modern model of education. The superintendent showed excellent leadership in curriculum and supported her team and staff in implementing new curriculum through a planned process involving all stakeholders. She has been especially effective at increasing test scores and student achievement. Through a very difficult budget process, Dr. Burnham was able to maintain transparency through the community, allowing trust in the district to grow. The children of the town of Lunenburg are fortunate to have her as superintendent. So the rest of the compiled evaluation has to do with standards Standard 1, in the area of instructional leadership, she was found to be proficient. Standard 2, in the area of management and operations, it was proficient. Standard 3, which is family and community engagement, it was proficient, and also proficient in the area of professional culture. Overall, our rating for Dr. Burnham is proficient.
Thank you all very much.
We thank you very much.
Any discussion from the members?
First of all, without direct comment on the superintendent, but comment on every administrator who has to do one of these forms for an educator. God bless you, because these things are not easy to navigate and get your head around when you're trying to fill them out. And I commented to Carol when I submitted mine. I felt largely, oftentimes incompetent in my role here or beyond my skis. And this was that times 10. I did not feel like this particular evaluation construct is very difficult to apply in the circumstance that we operate between a school committee and a superintendent. And I understand that it is what is prescribed as our job and the way that we are expected to evaluate a superintendent. But I found this to be a challenge. That being said, I agree with the results, and I think that over the course of my tenure, 2 years now, almost in this role, I've continually been amazed, impressed by the superintendent's thoughtfulness and resilience over a number of different areas. When she and I met to discuss this and to talk about some of the items, she pointed out to me that in Lunenburg, the superintendent of schools has a job to do to make sure that the kids get educated and that they're safe and that they're, all the things that we talk about incessantly. But in Lunenburg, the schools are the center of our community. A lot of activities happen here. If you read the Lunenburg Ledger, that is the bulk of the activity in town. People participate in tennis and pickleball and track activities and soccer leagues and football and you name it, and that all runs through the school department, and members of the public outside of the educational mission are constantly interfacing with the superintendent and her team to do all sorts of things that are required to do in town. Town meeting just being one example. And as a result of that, there are a lot of opportunities to make people come up with a better idea, or think that they were underserved, or think that they were overcharged, or who knows what, any myriad of things. And that requires an enormous, I use the word resilience, but you could put it a little bit more basic. It requires a thick skin. And to continue to charge forward in the face of constant criticism. And, sometimes those criticisms, by the way, they're legit, right? Nobody's perfect, and we can always do a better job. But what I've come to learn is this is a really, really, really hard job. And I'm glad it's your job and not my job. And I think you do a really good job at it, and I appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Same, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I am so glad you said that you found this difficult, because it's not a simple process, and it's just, the goals and tying everything in, this was difficult. I did also just want to highlight, I don't think I said it accurately in my evaluation, but I do really appreciate the way that Dr. Burnham, there's a lot that the public doesn't see that's going on behind the surface, and there has been a lot of progress in the past 2 years and in your tenure here of shifts in education to bring Lunenburg up to the standards that we need it to be at. There has been a lot of progress. And I'm very appreciative of that. And also, this is the part, I don't think I managed to state that in my evaluation enough. Dr. Burnham is very skilled at picturing the entire machine in her head and keeping track of the 8 million things going on and understanding where to focus her efforts. And I'm really appreciative of that, because this is a very large institution. And I'm appreciative of the grasp you have on that and your ability to understand how it all fits together and to find creative ways to get solutions and make everything fit together better. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scolambrini, do you have any comments?
So I wanted to make sure that I'm on record as saying that I really do think that Dr. Burnham is an asset to the district, to the town, to the kids. I practice law and do a lot of work with teachers and school districts in different states. And everything there is intentional in a way that it's hard to imagine ever happening in Lunenburg. And I think that that's because I've only ever been on the school committee while Dr. Burnham was at the helm of the ship. And I'm very grateful that she's here. I'm very grateful that she's doing the work that she's doing. And getting test scores to improve is really, the currency by which superintendents are evaluated. And she has done exceptional work there. So I want to thank her for all the work she's done. And I think, for me, this is my second time. I was right on the border between proficient and exceed expectations, or whatever the fourth one is. But I think that, it's such a murky process because the form is so complicated. But the bottom line is, she is a true asset to the town, and I think that we'll see all of her vision bear fruit going forward into the future, which is really exciting to be a part of.
Thank you, Mr. Scolambrini. I would add, I appreciated Dr. Burnham's work, giving us the artifacts and giving us the information that we needed to help us complete the process. She did an excellent job this year. I thought the individual evaluations were very similar, very close. They weren't too far off. And even some, I think it was the student learning goal had significant progress, but I felt like that was appropriate, and significant progress is progress. So I thought that was a success too. I also wanted to applaud Ms. Archambault for putting this together. I felt like she reached everybody's comments in there and really highlighted the full committee's decision on the evaluation, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
And thank you, Carol, for putting this together.
You're
You
welcome.
managed to somehow, that was
And
talent.
keeping me on task.
To get,
Well, there's that.
to compile 5 different people's evaluations into one cohesive document was not easy, and you somehow managed to do it, and thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're looking for an action item on the superintendent's evaluation, looking for a motion.
Move to approve the evaluation, the 2-year evaluation from 22 to 24 of Superintendent Dr. Kate Burnham.
Second?
Any discussion? The only thing I want to add too is, as you are doing this process, I want everybody to start thinking about, hopefully you already thought about what the goals should be for the coming year. So take notes now before you forget about them in the fall. And I think we'll have some really good goals for the superintendent in the fall.
I
Any other
won't be
discussion?
waiting until the fall. I'll be looking for that input over the summer.
So send it right over to Dr. Burnham as soon as you think about it.
So we should send that directly to you to compile some thoughts going into
Yeah,
organizational meetings?
that,
and-
or we can schedule a meeting one-on-one over the summer.
Okay.
To, have some conversation around your thoughts on the direction that you want to take next.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think a head start would be good before we decide to have a meeting and vote on those goals. Great, so we have a motion and a second. We're ready for a roll call vote on the superintendent evaluation.
I think it's possible that Mr. Scolambrini has dropped off the meeting.
We can
Yeah, I just seen
do
the
it in
iPhone
person.
too, yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right, so
so
all in favor of supporting the motion to approve the superintendent evaluation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion passed. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Open up to public comment from the public. Seeing none, I'll open up public comment from the board.
Let's go Celtics.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
Let's go Tom Brady.
All right, next item on the agenda is executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body and the chair so declares.
Motion to enter executive session and then adjourn afterwards?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you all for coming tonight.